member for Wannon.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I give my condolences to the families and friends of those who were killed in the attacks in Paris, in Beirut, in Egypt and in Mali, and in all the other places over the last 2 years that the evil of terrorism has shown its ugly face. And can I commend the member for Sydney for her speech, because she is correct in the fact that it will only be courage, courage which will defeat this evil ideology which is destroying innocent lives across the world as we debate this motion. And it is not just something that we have seen in the last couple of years. Sadly, since 2001, attacks in New York, in Bali, in London, in Madrid, in Mumbai, in Paris have shaped our world, and sadly seen innocent Australians die. Fortunately, fatal attacks in our own country have been few. Tragically though, this is no comfort to the families of Curtis Cheng, Katrina Dawson and Tory Johnson. They have seen terrorism, the full brunt of it, here in Australia and have had to deal with the consequences. Mr Deputy Speaker, there's only two things that will protect us and serve us in this fight: an unwavering commitment to our values and a resolve to destroy terrorism at its heart. Australian values are the best means to keep the hatred that organisations like ISIS, like Al-Qaeda, like Boko Haram are spreading from affecting our citizens. Our values of tolerance, pluralism, individual liberty show us a determination to fight for the freedoms that many around the world fight to secure for themselves. We cannot forget that nearly 1/4 of Australians were born overseas and have come here because of our values, because of our freedoms, and they are what makes our country great. But being Australians brings rights, but also, just as importantly, brings responsibilities. And we must ensure that we all are united in defending our values and our freedoms. After the tragic events in Paris, in the strongest language we have seen from any leader, President Francois Hollande announced to his people that France was at war. He showed that not only would it be French values that would defeat this evil threat, but also it would be a collective will around the world to do so as well. He stated the Republic would not be destroyed by terrorism. Terrorism would be destroyed by France. This government has shown that it too has the collective will to ensure that we are playing our part in trying to destroy Daesh or ISIS. The government has committed the second largest military contribution in Syria and in Iraq to dealing with this threat. We have supported our ally, the United States, and the many other countries which have joined forces to defeat this evil organisation. We have also at home given our intelligence agencies and police forces the tools to do their job in an increasingly dangerous and fast-paced environment. Provisions for foreign fighters, special intelligence operations, data retention and citizenship have all been balanced by reviews which have also seen to protect our values. Over 120 recommendations have taken into account the views of experts in making sure we not only have put in place laws to keep us safe, but we have put in place laws to keep our values safe. In dealing with the heart of these attacks, we must also continue to show a resolve for dealing with it. As the member for Sydney illustrated, we must draw on the courage which has been shown where terrorism has raised its ugly head and use that to make sure that we destroy it at its core. This is the only means by which we can prevent organisations such as Daesh from promoting, provoking, funding or resourcing further attacks. As President Hollande said, we must combine our forces to achieve a result that is already too late in coming. If we are to defeat ISIS, then the West and its allies will have to ensure that they have the collective will to do so. Striking at them to degrade and destroy their capabilities is the only way to ensure they cannot continue to attack us at home. If they are allowed to continue to have a territory where they can act to seek to attack us, then we are in danger. But it is an incredibly complex theatre of which they are operating within, and we must understand this. We must understand the complexity of this situation. It's been described to me, and it's the best description that I've heard, that what we are dealing with is an area, and a strategic area, which has the complexity of playing a three-dimensional game of chess. So if we are to play this game successfully and ultimately win, it will involve coordinating political, military, diplomatic and covert force strategically. As David Kilcullen has shown, or written, and he is a global expert in military strategy and counterinsurgency and has some experience as the only Australian to advise the US Secretary of State, the US State Department on counter-terrorism, counterinsurgency. Western countries have a clear interest in destroying ISIS, and the goal should be to utterly annihilate ISIS as a state. He says this as one of the few to have experience in combating Al-Qaeda, and it was by being able to put forward with others a clear strategy for combating Al-Qaeda that he has put forward a clear strategy for dealing with Islamic State. He has outlined that organisations such as Daesh use an aggregation of grievances to tap into the unrest of citizens in other countries, to recruit them, manipulate them, and to get them to believe that the answer to their problems is jihad. The only way to destroy this network ultimately is to destroy Islamic State at its core. Yet without political will, we will be constrained in how much we can do. And we have to continue to play our part in doing this. We must ensure that parliaments around the world also encourage to have the political will to do what must be done to defeat ISIS. Now, the political will is one thing, a diplomatic effort is the next, and ensuring that when President Hollande shows that there is a clear intent now in Europe and in other parts of the world to make sure that there is the political solution to enable us to deal with ISIS on the ground, we must do what we can to help and support France in putting that solution together. We know it's complex. We've seen that recently with the shooting down of a Russian aircraft. But what that should do is once again strengthen our resolve to make sure that we can get a clear strategy in place, to make sure that we can get the United Nations Security Council acting as one against the situation that is currently evolving on the ground in Iraq and Syria, ensuring that we can get a unity of purpose to dealing with the complexity of the situation. Because if we don't, the suffering that especially we are seeing in Syria and in Iraq is going to continue. And it's suffering the like of which we haven't seen since the end of the Second World War. Well over 200,000 lives lost in Syria. Millions assembled on the border, seeking shelter, seeking food, seeking personal security. A complex web surrounding Iraq and Syria of nations looking after their own national interests, but also in need of combining to ensure that we can defeat this global problem, which is and will continue to touch all nations, not only surrounding Iraq and Syria, but elsewhere across the globe. And it's only if we can overcome these strategic hurdles that we will make greater headway. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, that is why it's important that Australia continues to play its part on calling on the global community to have the political will to achieve a political solution to the complex strategic environment in Iraq and Syria, but also then for having the political will to act to defeat Daesh. As leader of the free world, President Obama faces a legacy test like no other in trying to bring all this together. And while we all must admit that our missteps have contributed to the situation, we must use the renewed global resolve which has come from Paris to forge an outcome. If the moment is not seized, the will to act will drain away and the world will be less insecure as a result. We now have a chance to implement a political solution that would allow us to take action against ISIS, and only by doing this can we prevent further strategy. My hope is, in the next couple of weeks, that we will continue to see global leaders meeting and putting in place the solution that we need. My hope is that we will see countries of the free world unite behind President Hollande in his task, in his mission to try and put together the solution we need to be able to combat ISIS. That will make all of our jobs easier here in keeping our nation safe, which, as we know, is the greatest priority that any government should have. We have superb intelligence agencies, we have superb police force, we have superb community engagement in trying to keep our nation safe here at home. But we need to also make sure that we are doing everything we can abroad to keep our nation safe. And that is why we need the political fix when it comes to dealing with Daesh on the ground. Mr Deputy Speaker, in the last 2 years, Australia's security threat level has been at high. We must be all doing everything we can to reduce this. We must be doing everything we can to make sure that our citizens are safe. This is going to continue to be difficult. Currently, before the Parliament is a new bill seeking to be able to place control orders on teenagers as young as 14. When I came into this Parliament 5 years ago, the idea that we would need to be placing control orders on 14-year-olds was something that I think we all would have been aghast at. That is the reality, though, that we are dealing with, Mr Deputy Speaker. We are dealing with an evil which knows no bounds, and we must show that we have the political will to defeat it that has no bounds.